Hello everyone, the topic of today's video is going to be a bit different. If you watched some of my previous live streams, especially the Halloween one, you probably already know that I'm a huge horror fan. Everything from movies to games, but I have never really shown that in my art here on YouTube. So when Crypt TV asked me for a collaboration, I found this to be the perfect opportunity to include that fascination in my videos. Crypt TV is a studio that is building a universe of scary monsters in pursuit to become the Marvel for monsters. They release new films every Tuesday, Thursday and Friday. So for this video I chose to paint my favorite of their monsters, the Birch. For those of you who haven't seen the short film yet, I try not to spoil too much of the story. I put a link in the description and I encourage you to watch it yourself. When I was asked to choose between their monsters, I was instantly drawn to the design of the Birch. I was excited that I could use the cling film method for the first time to create those bizarre abstract textures on the painting and actually implement them as wooden textures. For that you use just a piece of cling film, rumple it and slightly press it on the wet areas on the paper. As soon as the color is dried, pull off the foil to see how it turned out. It's a pretty fun way to take away the hesitation when sitting in front of the white paper. For what I usually paint, the Birch is a pretty unconventional motif, but giving that a try wasn't the only reason I chose it as my subject. On first glance, the Birch doesn't really look pretty or desirable in any way. And thinking about it, it doesn't get better on the second glance either. I mean, it was made to scare you after all, and it achieves that effect very well with the creepy looking mouth, the missing nose, the sharp teeth and the overall appearance of its body. But it also has some kind of morbid beauty to it. It reminded me in a way of how I reacted to the first look of Sharon Needles in Drag Race or the beauty of Anna Varney of Super Eternus. Of course, they looked very different and you might even say that they share nothing at all. But for me, there is this certain kind of aesthetic that these looks have. They just draw me into wanting to see more. So why is it that I can't stop looking at it? In my teenage years, my interest was caught by things that were, under conventional observation, rather off-putting. I felt very goth at that time and my aesthetic was really loaded with all kinds of creepy looking and morbid stuff that had a bit of a shock value. I loved the clothes, shows like Invader Zim, games like Silent Hill, and had Victoria Frances posters hanging in my room, and consequently my art was very influenced by that. The Greyman has a very dark touch to it and was the first manga series that I'm still reading to this day, and it's still my favorite manga so far. But even though that stuff gives you the feeling of being part of some underground culture, at least a little bit, it doesn't necessarily mean that it is an underground culture. Movies like Tim Burton's Nightmare Before Christmas are widely popular, for example. But I have to admit my favorite part about the movie is not the movie itself, but the appearance it had in Kingdom Hearts. Sora's Halloween outfit still is the absolute best in my opinion and inspired me to do a ton of fan art as a teenager. So while identifying as an edgy goth kid, that I am different mindset probably helped me to get involved with stuff like that, I don't think it's ultimately the reason why people stick to it. Maybe when you grow older it's more common to just enjoy stuff without building your identity around it. And judging by the popularity of those designs and looks among the fans, I think it's fair to say that not every one of them is part of a specific gothic or underground scene. They simply enjoy it for what it is. I believe my fascination with the horror genre comes from a different direction. Those shows and games have certain aesthetic freedoms that are comparably rare in my experience. My art has changed and I don't really see myself as someone from the gothic or emo scene, but I still enjoy listening to music like Super Eternus and watch every new dark or horror movie once it's released. Those bands, movies like Pan's Labyrinth and shows like Invader Zim create looks and moods that are inspiring and instantly recognizable in style. And it's not only the different looks that I find inspiring with the horror genre, but also the way stories are told. Crypt TV's film The Birch, for example, does a pretty good job at playing with the tension. Like a lot of horror movies, first it starts a bit cryptic. You don't really know what to expect, but you are curious and you feel something is coming. And with horror movies, it literally could be anything, which is what I love most about horror movies. But ultimately, it also makes a lot of them hit or miss. The payoff needs to be right, and when it manages to give you exactly that, I think that's the best part of it. It doesn't need to care about realism or telling a pleasant and fun story with a happy end. They are out there too, but the mixture gives you a lot to choose from. And of course, a lot of horror movies follow a genre-typical cliché, like jump scares or the characters doing things they obviously shouldn't have done, which can be pretty funny sometimes. But comparably, still, I think it's far more interesting for horror movies to break those boundaries. Horror movies are able to be more anarchic in that regard. As a viewer, I'm more willing to suspend my disbelief. For example, if you told the story of a babysitter and the kid turned out to be a psychopath, that would probably be very hard to work into a romantic comedy. Horror films, on the other hand, can and often do include funny or romantic elements you would see in other genres. Thus, with a good horror movie, the viewer can't be 100% sure how a story turns out. A character might survive, might die, or turn out to be the monsters themselves. The danger might be a human or a supernatural monster, an alien or a zombie, or something in between. It could be technology or the human mind itself. Shows like Black Mirror make good use of that freedom. While watching, you have the constant notion of danger, that anything can switch or go wrong any second. And for me, it's really inspiring to see those situations or creatures, being curious and thinking about how likely or unlikely they are to appear in real life. So what can I say? Even if it might not be my main focus, horror movies have inspired me a whole lot. Visually, they had an impact on my work mostly in my teenage years, but today I still love to watch them. Might that be for different reasons compared to back then? I enjoy the aesthetics they convey and how some aspects make me rethink the term beauty. So I hope you enjoyed this little trip through my mind, even if you aren't a horror movie fan yourself. And I hope that I could make the fascination and fun that me and other fans have more accessible. If you enjoy watching horror movies and especially short ones, I can definitely recommend you to check out Crypt TV's channel. Subscribe to their channel for weekly scary films. And again, if my painting made you curious, the link to the film along with everything else you need to know is in the description. Thank you very much for watching, and until next time.